Have you ever had that feeling, that deep, undeniable suspicion that the person you introduce yourself as, with your name, your job, your history, that it's all, at best, just a temporary character you're playing? That somewhere deep down, beneath all the daily stuff, the expectations, there's a piece of you that hasn't just been forgotten, but maybe was intentionally buried.
That's it. That's the resonance, that quiet, persistent whisper inside you.
Right.
The one that insists you are vastly more than your current circumstances. That's our starting point for this awakening of spirit.
And it seems the sources we're looking at suggest the biggest deception wasn't about keeping us in the dark about some big secret.
No, it was far more insidious than that. It was about being thoroughly, convincingly persuaded that we are something we're unequivocally not.
Which is?
A finite, fragile, and utterly dependent being.
Okay. So let's unpack this with the intimacy it really deserves. We've gathered sources that point to this ancient, powerful tradition, a specific method for achieving what they call soul remembrance.
Right. And the claim is, it's a good one.
It is. The documents suggest this practice was so direct, so effective, that it was intentionally removed from public knowledge because it worked, and I'm quoting here, too well.
Too well. Imagine that. Something working too well.
We're talking about an ancient key, a practical method, supposedly hidden in plain sight, designed to swing open the gates to the memory of your true, original self.
And our mission right now is to gently, almost confidentially, guide you through that forgotten wisdom.
And this isn't about learning new things, is it?
Not at all. It's not about collecting new doctrines or adding spiritual jargon to your mind. Think of it purely as removal.
The removal of what's false.
Exactly. We're going to explore its origins, understand the deep systemic fear that caused it to be suppressed, and most importantly, detail the specific steps you can take to remember your authentic essence.
And that essence, it's not a name or biography.
No, it's a vibration, a living, immortal awareness, your distinct internal signature. It's time to remember.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, where the big conspiracy theory idea meets personal spirituality. We're dealing with this core premise, a practice so focused, so streamlined, that it was the one key, the single key capable of opening the secret gates to the memory of the soul.
And think about the implication of that. The sources suggest that if you could, right now, today, remember your true purpose, the entire way you live would shift.
How so?
The frantic external search. It just stops. The chasing of money, of approval, of love, it all transforms into a quiet, self-sufficient internal discovery.
And that paradigm shift is the crucial hinge, because that's what makes this knowledge so volatile.
Politically and systemically volatile. Yes, if
Nice.
every single person has the internal means for self-realization, the entire structure of external authority, be it spiritual, financial, political, policies, it just starts to crumble.
The analysis in the material points to a really clear, documented fear around this.
It does. Once a soul recalls its authentic frequency, once it remembers the specific tune it's meant to sing in the universe, it can no longer be contained, it can't be molded or reliably controlled by these big hierarchical structures.
Okay, but I have to push back a little on that.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about the rulers of this world, it can sound a bit like convenient paranoia, can't it?
It's a fair challenge,
Sure.
a necessary one.
I mean, how does the source material actually support this? The idea that it was a political systemic suppression and not just, a spiritual idea that naturally faded over time. Isn't it just easier to believe we just lost it through apathy?
Well, the evidence of suppression isn't necessarily some, decree written on a stone tablet. It's more subtle. It's in the systematic and synchronous fragmentation of the knowledge.
Fragmentation, what do you mean?
You see the same core method taken apart, its pieces scattered across diverse, geographically separate cultures all around the same time. And when the sources mention rulers, they don't just mean a king or a president. They mean any controlling system, a dogmatic religion, our consumerist economy. Anything that relies on you feeling incomplete, on you feeling like you need something from the outside to be whole. Internal freedom. It just disrupts that status quo.
That brings us to that quote that I find. Well, it's profoundly unsettling. The rulers of this world fear an awakened soul more than a sleeping army.
Think about that for a second.
It suggests that spiritual autonomy, at its root, is just. It's fundamentally incompatible with centralized control. A sleeping army, you can direct it. You can give it a strategy. But an awakened soul,
An awakened soul follows an utterly reliable, incorruptible internal compass. And that is the consequence of remembrance, absolute self-sovereignty.
so if you truly know in your bones that you are an immortal, sovereign particle of consciousness,
Then what happens to fear? All the threats of loss, losing a job, losing money, even the fear of physical death, they suddenly lose their absolute gravity. The tools of manipulation, of fear and desire, which are really the backbone of modern control, they just stop working on you.
this internal independence, that's what was truly feared. And that's what led to the suppression.
A methodical suppression of the practical steps.
So the mechanism of the deception, it wasn't just letting us forget. It was more active than that. It was this deliberate, constant imposition of a false identity.
A superimposed identity. We were, as the source notes, made to believe we are something we are not. It's like putting on an ill-fitting, restrictive suit of metal armor at birth and spending 60 years convincing yourself that the armor is your skin.
And that superimposed identity is the heaviest veil, isn't it?
The most complicated one. We're talking about a whole lifetime spent identifying with the surface noise.
What kind of noise?
Biographical facts, inherited emotional patterns, the constant stream of societal expectations from media, and especially the trauma narrative that dictates our limitations. We mistake these temporary, conditioned reactions for the actual, authentic self.
And if you start to analyze that, just in a practical sense, it's terrifyingly efficient. It's the identity that says, I am defined by my debt, or I am only valuable when I'm validated by others, or I have to follow this political party to be a good person.
Yeah.
How do we even begin to spot the difference between the armor and the skin?
That is the very first stage of the method, which we'll detail later. But the starting point is critical awareness.
Okay.
Think of your brain not as this perfect instrument, but more like a poorly filtered radio receiver. It's constantly picking up signals from every antenna nearby, the collective unconscious, media, family trauma, cultural fears. The superimposed self is just the result of listening to all that static and convincing yourself that you are the static.
So this whole process, this awakening of spirit, is a guide to help you retune the dial.
Exactly, to find that original clear voice within, the one that, according to the ancients, has always been there, just muffled by layers of accumulated foreign noise.
And so the sources assert this profound knowledge wasn't suppressed because it was dark or evil.
No, quite the opposite. It was suppressed precisely because of its light. A truth, as they say, too bright for some systems to bear.
Which frames this journey of remembrance not just as some personal quest for peace, but as a subtle, powerful, quiet act of revolution against imposed limitation.
What's truly fascinating when you study the global sources is that even though this specific method was fragmented and hidden, the core truth behind it left this undeniable, this quiet echo.
An echo.
You find it across virtually all ancient traditions, this universal message, this
Oh.
recurring idea that humanity is living in a state of spiritual amnesia, that we're viewing our physical, ordinary life as little more than a dream or a veil separating us from our authentic self.
That concept that our physical reality is a temporary state of forgetting, it shows up everywhere. From the earliest texts to the most obscure myths, it really does feel like a universal SOS signal from our past.
It does.
So let's dive into some of these specific echoes, because understanding the context, it shows us how foundational this remembrance practice really is.
We can begin in ancient Egypt. But let's focus not on the famous pharaohs, but on the hidden tradition held by the temple priests.
In mystery schools.
Exactly. They maintained these highly secretive, intense initiation ceremonies. And these weren't public sermons. They were deeply personalized, experiential rites designed specifically to trigger this memory.
And what were the mechanics of these ceremonies? We read about a symbolic departure. How did they actually engineer that state of soul remembrance?
The Egyptian process was radical because it was so direct. The student would undergo a temporary voluntary stasis. The sources describe the body going still for hours.
Still? Like how still?
Almost like a deep trance, sometimes guided by specific herbs or environmental isolation, but primarily through sheer internal discipline. And the master, the experienced guide who had already crossed the border, would then shepherd the student's consciousness through, well, non-physical, invisible spiritual spaces.
So it was an intentional, protected disengagement from the physical world.
Yes, designed to prove the soul's independence from the body.
That seems like a pretty extreme approach.
Yeah.
And the sources say the result was an irreversible transformation. They didn't just feel relaxed or have a nice vision. They literally crossed the border and remembered. What exactly was the nature of that memory? What was it that couldn't be unseen?
The memory was one of cosmic self-identity and timeline. They remembered their connection to the vastness of creation, the absolute non-local nature of their
So
consciousness.
it wasn't just a personal memory.
No, it was a memory of their place in everything.
Yeah.
They gained this stable inner anchor that allowed them to understand that the challenges of physical life were temporary, just a small part of a much larger eternal framework.
And once you experience your identity extending beyond the five senses, beyond linear time.
The physical world, though it's still real, it loses its power to define you, absolutely. The veil is thinned permanently, and they lived from that stable internal center, no matter what external chaos was happening.
Okay, so if we follow that thread across the Mediterranean to the Hellenic world, specifically the Orphic traditions, we see a parallel approach.
We do. They viewed the soul as imprisoned in the flesh, but, and this is a crucial distinction, not as a curse or some kind of divine punishment.
It was described as a necessary stage of purification.
This is a subtle but really important shift in perspective. It reframes suffering and physical limitations not as damnation, but as a temporary spiritual schooling, a curriculum designed to burn away impurity.
So what did they do? What were their methods?
The Orphics developed these very specific, highly controlled methods. They used sacred chanting, rigorous breathwork, trance rhythms, all engineered to create a physiological and mental state that allowed the soul to momentarily break free from its earthly shell and behold its divine origin.
And what were they trying to purify specifically? Was it about ethical behavior or was it something more energetic?
It was both, but the primary focus was on the energetic and emotional attachments.
Oh.
The chanting and the breath rhythms were designed to literally change the internal vibration of the student.
Like tuning an instrument.
Precisely. By stabilizing the emotional body and elevating the internal energy, they provided a brief, stable launch window for the soul. It was a glimpse of home, an undeniable experiential verification that served as this profound motivator for them to continue their ethical and spiritual purification throughout their physical lives. The moment of memory validated the hardship of the discipline.
And finally, let's turn to ancient India, the rishis and the concept of smarana.
Yes, Smarana. And the translation is crucial here. It's not just remembering a fact like a name or a date. It is the profound recollection of what the soul already knows.
So it implies that the knowledge of our own divinity is.
Mm.
It's built into our core programming.
It's the highest form of recognition. For the rishis, spiritual blindness wasn't a deficit that you needed to fill with scriptures or lectures. It was purely a broken connection, like having an unplugged phone. The signal is there, you just can't hear it.
And the solution, the path home, was entirely internal.
Entirely. And it was focused on shedding. The principle of neti, not this, not that. You achieve remembrance not by accumulating more spiritual knowledge, but by detaching from all the false superimposed identities.
So the key ingredients are inner detachment, silence, and what the source calls the precise harmonization of one's vibrations. How does that relate practically?
In the simplest terms, you don't build a new house of self. You meticulously peel the falsehoods and the accumulated junk away until the original light shines through, undimmed.
And harmonization.
It meant adjusting your entire life to support that process. Harmonizing your diet, your social environment, your daily routine, your mental focus. If you live a chaotic life, you create static. If you introduce silence and discipline, you allow the fundamental vibrational note of the soul to become audible again.
Okay, so we have this consistent universal thread, the idea that the physical self is temporary, the true self is immortal, and the path to realizing this is internal, demanding detachment and specific energetic alignment. If this message was so powerful and universal, what happened? How did such a vital, unifying message get so thoroughly lost or distorted or turned into rigid, inaccessible dogma?
This brings us back to the analysis of what the sources call the darkness and fragmentation. They point to these historical moments of centralization, the rise of sacred wars, the hardening of spirituality, and the assertion of external control over internal truth.
So when political and religious organizations consolidated power,
They created systems that required intermediaries between the human and the divine, a priest, a text, a ritual, something outside of you.
So the direct method, which made the individual self-sufficient, it had to be fragmented.
It was taken apart. The pieces were turned into empty, complicated rituals that only required submission to authority. Or the profound symbols were just hidden away, embedded in obscure, dense mythology, and they lost their practical, experiential power completely.
So the practical keys became just beautiful but useless esoteric stories.
Exactly. They lost their function as tools for direct experience. And the underlying sustained reason for this distortion, as we established, remains the spiritual and political danger of self-sovereignty.
Well, because the moment a soul remembers its essence,
It becomes an anchor of peace and independence, a frequency that hierarchical systems simply cannot manage or control.
we've established the why of the suppression. Now let's move into the practical how. The core directive remains that the soul needs to remember, not learn. And this memory is born from achieving a specific internal frequency. A vibrational purity that forces everything false to just fall away.
That phrase, specific frequency of vibration, we need to ground that. Think of your soul not as an idea, but literally as a specific radio station broadcasting continuously. Your superimposed self is just all the static, the commercials, the noise from other channels cluttering up the bandwidth.
So this method is an internal movement.
It's a precise three-stage sequence designed to align your physical body, your emotional mind, your internal energy, and your sheer awareness into a state of harmonic resonance. When these four elements vibrate cleanly together,
The soul's memory manifests.
not as a thought, but as a direct living experience.
So let's detail this three-stage sequence. It begins with stage 1, liberation from the superimposed. The source calls this the hardest part. Why is releasing the false self, the ego, the mask, so incredibly difficult?
It's the hardest because that superimposed identity is built from safety mechanisms, from accepted narratives. It's been operating on autopilot, protecting you for decades. The goal here isn't to destroy it.
But to recognize it.
Radical recognition, yes. You have to learn to identify the internal voices that are not intrinsically yours, the thoughts you absorb from childhood without checking, the automatic self-critical narratives implanted by others, the social masks you wear to get approval.
So you look deep into that torrent of consciousness and you ask the core question.
The purifying inquiry. Is this truly mine, or was it brought from the outside?
Okay, as a listener proxy, I'd say this is where the difficulty really sinks in. How do I distinguish my thought from a foreign thought? I mean, what if that foreign thought is some old, deeply embedded defense mechanism?
This requires immense sincerity and patience. A thought that is foreign, even if it's defensive, it always carries a certain frequency. A frequency of contraction, of fear, of obligation.
And a thought that's genuinely from the soul.
It carries a sense of expansion, a quiet knowing, a peace. Liberation isn't about fighting the foreign thoughts, that just gives them more energy. It's about recognizing them as not self, labeling them gently as external noise, and simply withdrawing your attention, your vital energy.
So you withdraw your energy from the false narrative.
That withdrawal is the key to liberation.
Okay, so once that withdrawal begins and the noise of the superimposed self starts to dissipate, we move into stage 2, awakening inner feeling. The source describes this as something distinct. It's neither rational nor emotional. So if it's not thought and it's not emotion, what precisely is this direct perception?
This is where we need a good analogy because it's hard to define intellectually. Think of the difference between knowing rationally that you should eat a healthy meal, that's
Yeah.
like the rational mind,
Right.
and the visceral, unmistakable feeling of discomfort or dullness your body experiences the moment you eat processed junk food. That is inner feeling, inner knowing.
So it's the body's truth sensor.
It is. It's a clear, intuitive certainty, a subtle resonance or dissonance that arises when the mental static has been silenced. It's the infallible antenna of the soul.
So it's not about analyzing the situation, it's about sensing the energetic truth of it.
Precisely. And the method uses specific keys to tune into this feeling during silent rituals and conscious breathing.
And these keys are?
The inner flame, the heart lotus, and the soul mirror. And they aren't just pretty images for distraction. They are dynamic, energetic instruments. They function as living keys that specifically bypass the rational mind to wake the ancient memory.
Can you elaborate on the function of each? Why those 3 specific symbols?
The inner flame represents the eternal spark of your awareness, the part of you that can never be extinguished, even by physical death. Focusing on it generates internal heat and focus, and it helps to burn away confusion.
Okay. And the heart lotus?
The heart lotus symbolizes the unfolding purity and universal compassion of the soul. Placing it in the heart center is about accessing pure awareness, free of emotional entanglement.
And the soul mirror sounds the most direct.
It is. It represents the unclouded reflection of the true self. By concentrating on the mirror, you are asking your consciousness to reflect reality without the distortion of the superimposed identity. You are initiating the process of recollection by showing the soul its original face.
This preparation, this cleaning and tuning, it leads to stage 3, resonance with the true name. Now, this is the highest and most esoteric part of the method. The idea of a hidden name of the soul that isn't a spoken word, but a unique signature vibration.
This concept is central to the deepest spiritual currents globally. It suggests that every single being has its own unique, sacred wave. This wave is the signature frequency of the immortal self. It's the specific sound that the universe makes when manifesting you.
So the process isn't about inventing a sound.
No, it's about calling forth this existing frequency. It's an internal sound, a unique hum, a tone that vibrates through your core.
And when this vibration is found and resonated with, the mind is instructed not to analyze it. The sources describe the result as a profound, almost physical shudder of recognition.
It's the ultimate homecoming. The moment the internal sound, the vibration you were generating and listening to matches the frequency of your eternal self, the whole system achieves resonance. And this resonance manifests as an instantaneous, undeniable physical and energetic recognition.
And the thought that follows isn't an analysis.
No, it's a deep, embodied certainty. This is me. I have always been this sound, this frequency. I simply forgot how to listen. That realization is the manifestation of the soul memory. You've successfully retrieved your original identity through perfect vibrational alignment. As we move into the consequences of this alignment, we have to introduce the necessary caveat. This path isn't casual. It requires commitment and deep sincerity.
Right.
And once you begin stage 1, the honest work of liberation, something profound and irrevocable happens. A deeper, quieter, more sober part of the self starts to observe the world through your eyes.
That sounds like a powerful awakening. But the source includes a quiet but insistent warning, the necessity of facing the shadow, the part known as the release. Because in remembering who you truly are, you must inevitably realize, sometimes quite painfully, who you are not.
This is the necessary purification, the cleaning of the system. When the false self, the accumulated layers of fear, judgment, emotional blockages, is challenged by the intense light of the true self, it doesn't just gracefully melt away.
It surfaces.
It surfaces. Mistakes, unclosed chapters, deep-seated emotional wounds, suppressed memories, the very material you built your false identity around. It will rise to be seen and processed.
So if I start this practice, I should expect old anxieties or past relationships to suddenly come up. That sounds quite overwhelming.
It can be.
That must be why the ancient traditions deemed this practice dangerous for the unready. It requires a significant spiritual maturity to face that raw, unvarnished truth without spiraling into self-judgment.
Absolutely. The sources emphasize that the purpose of the surfacing isn't to punish you. It's not to cause suffering. It is simply to clean house and clear the energy field.
So it's a release.
It's a release. And if you have been dedicated to stage 1, to liberation, you will have cultivated the necessary detached perspective.
Right.
The ability to observe this release without identifying with the returning shadow. Without that internal stability, the surfacing shadow can overwhelm the system, which is why preparation and a calm, slow approach were always fundamental. You must be the witness, not the victim of your own past.
Once that cleaning process is underway, the experience stabilizes into what's known as the awakened trance. This is a crucial concept because the description is very clear. This is not a loss of self or unconsciousness. So how do we understand this state practically?
The term is a bit misleading in our modern context. It's not a trance of sleepiness. It is a profound, expanded awareness.
Yeah.
You remain fully functional, you can hold a conversation, drive a car, navigate a spreadsheet, but there's a distinct shift in the locus of yourself.
A shift in where you perceive from.
Exactly. You can feel the body, you hear the sounds, but simultaneously you are observing the world from an internal distance.
Right.
As if you're sitting on a very quiet, high observation deck, the intense feeling of being perpetually in the action defined by it just fades. It's replaced by quiet, non-reactive observation.
So the central mental shift is that the constant chattering internal dialogue no longer rules the individual.
The thinking mind, which we usually mistake for ourselves, becomes a specialized tool rather than the master of the house.
And that liberation.
Yeah.
It changes the flow of insight.
It does. When the tyranny of thought is broken, information and insight begin to flow not logically, but purely intuitively. Emotions are felt clearly without the mind weaving complex, self-pitying, or justifying narratives around them.
And the sources mention something about time.
Yes. Perhaps the most startling sensation is the fluidity of time. You may receive insights without logic, not memories you studied, but deep, clear recollections of past lives, ancestors, even future possibilities. which the source suggests you carry within the deep consciousness of the soul. It's like the library of your true eternal self quietly opening its doors to your conscious mind.
That deeper awakened awareness is the goal of this whole journey. So, for those who are ready to commit to this process of remembrance, to move beyond the surface, the sources provide a clear 7-step daily structure. Given that this is the most practical part, we need to walk through these instructions slowly, deliberately, with great detail, framing them as a gentle guiding structure for you, the listener.
We will treat this section as the practical blueprint for continuous reorientation. It's about building a new inner structure that perfectly supports the frequency of the soul, replacing the old structure that supported the false self.
Let's begin with the immediate morning ritual, morning purification, a focused 5 to 10 minutes.
This is the absolute foundation. Upon waking, the directive is strict but simple. Do not touch your phone. Do not engage with any media. Do not speak.
Nothing, just sit.
Sit immediately with no input in silence. The first interaction of your day must be internal. You have to establish your own frequency before the world's frequencies contaminate it. The intention is purification before activation.
So you use the silence to filter the incoming noise.
Yes, and you ask yourself, what thoughts today are truly mine? Whose expectations or demands am I subconsciously preparing to fulfill? You are setting an internal boundary right from the start.
And there's an accompanying mantra or affirmation that sets the vibrational tone for the day.
It must be simple and resolute, planting a deep seed. Today, I release what is foreign. I live from the center. By repeating this internally and slowly, you're programming your subconscious to anchor your awareness in your internal core, independent of the external demands and noise that will immediately start clamoring for your attention.
Okay, next we move to the breath of remembering. This is a 10-minute harmonization exercise. It requires a specific posture and rhythm.
Posture is key to energy flow. You sit with a straight back, ensuring the spine is upright but relaxed. Place one hand gently on your heart center and the other on your belly. This anchors your awareness to the central axis of your energy body.
And the rhythm.
It's not hurried, it's a gentle cadence. You inhale slowly for a count of 4, hold the breath gently without any strain for a count of 4, and then you exhale slowly and completely for a count of 6.
A longer exhale.
Yes. The extended exhale signals the nervous system to release tension, and it promotes a deep internal stability.
And there's a detailed visualization that goes with this breath.
As you inhale, you imagine a brilliant, pure golden white light entering through the crown of your head, washing down through your system. It fills your chest, your belly, your limbs. With every extended 6-count exhale, you feel the false self, the tension, the foreign expectations, the imposed masks, leaving your body, dissipating like gray smoke into the air.
So you're synchronizing the breath with the liberation process.
You're making the release of the superimposed identity physical and palpable.
Step 3 is the soul symbol, a 15-minute focused visualization. And the sources stress the commitment required here.
Yes. Once you choose one of the 3 keys, the flame, the lotus, or the mirror, you commit to it for a significant period, maybe a month, maybe longer. You visualize this symbol not just as a picture, but as a 3-dimensional living object of energy in one of your primary energetic centers.
The heart of the third eye.
Right. And this is not passive contemplation. You engage the symbol. You place your awareness fully into it, and you ask, with sincere inner silence, what do you want to show me now? What ancient memory do you hold?
And the core instruction, which is often the most difficult, is don't analyze, just observe. How does a practitioner maintain that focused awareness for 15 minutes without the mind rushing in to interpret or judge everything?
This is where the practice of stage 1 really helps. You gently remind the mind that it is an observer, not the primary recipient of information. If a thought arises, is this real? Is this working? You acknowledge it, and you just return your attention to the feeling, the texture, the energy of the symbol.
So you trust the symbol itself.
The symbol, as an ancient key, transmits information directly to your intuitive core. You're patiently waiting for subtle energetic shifts, colors, feelings, or nonverbal knowledge that the symbol triggers.
This detailed tuning leads to the culmination. The search for the true name, 30 minutes, performed in total solitude. This is the act of actively seeking that unique sacred wave.
This requires the deepest form of internal listening, what the ancients called shabda. In that profound solitude after the preliminary tuning and breathing, you must ask your heart, not your loud thinking mind, the profound question, if my soul were a sound, what would it be?
And you're listening beyond audible sound.
You're listening for the internal signature. It may manifest as a simple vowel sound, a specific melody, a gentle hum, or a continuous low frequency.
But if the listener finds just internal noise or confusion, how do they distinguish the true, expansive vibration from random internal chatter or even just bodily noise like their heartbeat?
This is the litmus test of the soul's frequency. Random internal noise, the superimposed self, always feels restrictive, anxious, or pressured. The true vibration, however subtle, will feel expansive, effortless, and utterly familiar.
So there's a distinct feeling.
A distinct, immediate inner expansion. It's a peaceful, resonant feeling that seems to emanate from the core of your being, not your head. You have to simply wait, listen patiently for the resonance to arise, and trust that feeling of expansion.
And once that subtle vibration or sound arises, what then?
You repeat it gently, internally, like a mantra, or you simply hold the awareness of that sound. This repetition isn't to memorize it, but to amplify the resonance. This sound is your unique frequency, the perfect alignment that allows the conscious self to merge with the immortal awareness, triggering that shudder of recognition we talked about.
Okay, moving to the end of the day, we incorporate the evening inventory, 5 minutes before sleep. This seems designed to reinforce the day's discernment.
It is the moment of non-judgmental accountability. Before you enter the highly suggestible subconscious state of sleep, you review the day's actions and interactions quickly.
And the questions are,
Straightforward and piercing. Where did you act from a mask or a superimposed need? What did you act purely from your soul's authentic essence? And the directive is to merely observe the difference. No self-criticism, no analysis.
the purpose is just to strengthen your discerning muscle between the true and the false self.
Exactly. Preparing you to operate from the center again the next morning.
Finally, the sources suggest 2 foundational lifestyle adjustments to go with the daily practice. The first is weekly silence.
This requirement is often overlooked, but it is absolutely vital. The requirement is to spend half a day, 6 focused hours, without speaking, without consuming any media.
No books, no screens, no music.
Nothing. And without engaging with external noise, the soul, the source suggests, requires vast physical and mental space to expand and to breathe. If you are constantly inputting information, listening to other people's words, or expressing external opinions, you never create the vacuum necessary for your own inner voice to achieve volume and clarity.
So this weekly silence is sacred time.
Dedicated entirely to internal listening and processing the effects of the daily practice.
And the last step is total integration. Life from the center, transforming ordinary acts into moments of awareness.
This step ensures the profound work you do in solitude doesn't remain confined to the meditation cushion.
Cool.
Washing dishes, walking to the store, drinking a cup of tea, waiting in line, these all become continuous opportunities for self-check.
And you ask yourself,
Continually, without fanfare.
oh,
Am I doing this chore, this task, this interaction from the anxious mask or from the centered awareness of the soul? This transforms your daily routine into sustained awareness. It ensures that the vibrational alignment achieved in solitude is constantly maintained in your active life. This continuous self-check is the final stage of fully embodying your rediscovered essence. If we synthesize this entire path, its historical suppression, its universal echoes, its practical method, the final, most potent truth is, well, it's stunningly simple.
it seems to be.
The path is direct, it is immediate, it is close, and it requires no external authority, no fees, no elaborate theology. And because it is so simple and direct, requiring only internal sincerity, it's feared by systems that thrive on complexity and the illusion of distance.
And here is the core identity shift that this remembrance will inevitably bring. You are not the roles others assign to you. You're not defined by the stories others have told you. You're certainly not the sum of your fears. You are, at your core, a vibrating particle of eternal consciousness. You only temporarily misplace the song you were born to sing.
And the freedom inherent in that knowledge means the external, frantic search for fulfillment it ends. This journey doesn't require a guru or a scripture or a new belief system. It requires only you to return to your vibrational center and systematically quiet the superimposed noise, layer by gentle layer.
But what is the ultimate lived result of that remembrance, that full vibrational shift in your daily life?
The source suggests you stop needing approval or validation. You stop chasing love and external affirmation because you stop operating from a deficit. You realize simply and profoundly that you are love.
The fundamental scarcity complex that drove the false self's behavior It just vanishes.
Understand this. There is no revolution, external or internal, more powerful, more quietly disruptive than an awakened soul operating from its center. You are not on this path to learn a new philosophy. You are here to remember your own eternal nature.
And the moment that memory begins to surface,
The rhythm of the entire world shifts around you to match your newfound peace.
here is our final contemplation for you today. If your soul is truly a unique, sacred vibration, how does the current rhythm of your daily life, the pace at which you move, the noise you consume, the responsibilities you carry, either amplify, distort, or mute your unique fundamental frequency? The remembering has already begun.